if the answer to more energy is moving through that pyramid and
Hmm.
doing that on a consistent basis, how do I start to do that during my week so that when I get to,
Yep.
A, my days, but B, my weekend, then my weekend can actually be restorative? Like, I think you got to get to Friday and not be dead. Not that sometimes that's not going to
That's
happen
right.
and you can feel really accomplished. But if you can do that, then I think that the weekend actually becomes more restorative. So,
Yep.
quickly help our listeners know what are some really practical things or practicality corner that we can do to build some margins into our week to think about renewing our energy consistently.
Well, first and foremost, it's awareness, right? To be
Mm,
able to have the language around the four types of energy is really powerful
yeah,
because it's a quick way for you to measure how am I doing physically, emotionally, mental, and spiritually,
yeah,
right? And again, when we talk about the spirituality aspect, I just want to remind our listeners that we're talking about the sense of significance and purpose that you feel, right? And not to be confused with your emotions, right? Because that's a different sort of conversation. But the awareness that those four categories exist is step number one. And then I would say a few key questions around each one of those types of energy. So just for example, like checking in with yourself on Wednesday morning and just asking yourself like, how do I feel today? How do I
yeah,
feel physically? Am I feeling like I'm not getting enough sleep so far this week? How do I feel when I look at my meeting schedule today? I think meetings are typically pretty draining for people, especially because most of them aren't done well, as we
right.
know, right?
Yeah,
Like,
which we'll
like
talk about on another podcast.
yeah, we will. In fact, I really we need to have Nathan Gadosic come talk about it. It's like an area that he's focusing on a ton in his business right
Yeah,
now.
cool.
So we need to
Great.
invite him back. But what what we have to do is just ask ourselves, look, how is my energy in these categories, and what do I need to renew some of this energy? So for example, like we've been talking about, physical energy, but let's talk about emotional for a second, right? If we really want to be in the performance zone emotionally, we have to have a high sense of security and positive emotions. So a high sense of security and a positive outlook mean that we can perform. So you're going to feel things like a sense of calm. You're going to be optimistic. You're going to have a sense of like, I'm challenged, but I'm not experiencing an unhealthy level of stress and panic, right? Um, and you're going to feel more invigorated and vital emotionally
Sure.
when you're in a healthy spot, right? So those are just some words that like you can pull, like, do I feel these things? And if I don't, then probably what I need to do is like call a friend, call my spouse, just check in and hear how's your day going. Get your
Yeah,
mind off of your problems, right?
yeah,
Who's that sick friend, right? Go on a walk with your dog. Go play with your dog. Go play fetch, right?
yeah.
Whatever it is. And so that's one example of, you know, using questions and looking inward. I think one of the things that you've pointed our listeners to many times is like the power of writing your thoughts in a journal or notebook. Um, and particularly like thoughts about gratitude, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, Tony Robbins, I'm gonna brag on him for a minute. You may have different opinions on him, think whatever, but he said something really good. He goes, "Hey, um, most of us have we all wire our brains. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. How is our brain wired?" And he says, "Most of us have dirt roads to or paths to gratitude and highways to fear and anger." And so he says, "Hey, I choose to rewire my brain every day." And the way he does it is kind of this emotional check-in that you're talking about. He goes, "I actually listen," and you could do this at any point. I think he does it right in the morning. He goes, "I listen to a pump up song for about 3 minutes." He goes, "This whole thing's going to take about 10 minutes." He goes, "I listen to a pump up song for about 3 minutes, get myself really psyched, kind of for the day, connected with his vision, whatever he does." And then he goes, "And then I spend 3 minutes in gratitude." Right? So he's going to get really grateful and focus on that. And then 3 more minutes kind of thinking about and praying for those around him in his life. And I thought, man, what a good exercise to be able to do anytime that I am aware that maybe my energy is depleted. Cool. Throw on that song, a little Eminem getting you pumped up in the corner or whatever it is, you know, get really grateful for what's going on and then get outside of yourself. Here's the number one thing that I've been learning about my energy. Oftentimes, so when my basic needs are met, like I've actually slept more than 3 hours because my twins are sleeping and, there's at least enough money coming in or I can put it on the credit card or whatever. Um, my emotional state, my emotional state usually gets more depressed when I'm focusing on self. When I
Yes.
focus on others, when I can
Yes.
turn that, this brings me all the way back to leadership and self deception.
Yeah, I love it.
Here's the thing:
Yep.
when we're in the box, go read the book. You got to figure it out. We'll do a whole session on the box. But when you're in the box, your energy gets depleted really fast because you're only thinking about you. And the way
Mhm.
we are hardwired, they say that it's better to give than it is to receive. The reason is actually you win because I give to you, and I win because I'm giving to you, and it restores me.
That's right.
So, yes, I think that's super practical, Brad, to go, okay, great. If these base level needs are met, I'm getting enough sleep. Okay. Sometimes that's not always going to happen, and I'm safe. Now, emotionally, how am I going to be doing? Right?
Mhm.
Well, if you're out of whack, which is what happens, take a break. I think you can hardwire your day to go, I strategically plan in 2 or 3 times to just take a break, step away. And
Yep.
we'll do a whole other one on practical ways to continue to renew your energy. But and then focus on gratitude, focus on other people, focus on things outside of myself, and then connect back with your purpose, right? Get you
Mhm.
all the way back there. And if you
Yep.
don't know your purpose yet, we're doing a workshop on purpose, another or workshop podcast that we'll do talking about purpose specifically because everybody that's come on our podcast talks about the
Yep.
significance of that. And again, I think it's easier said than it is done. So, um,
Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting observation. You referenced the obstacle is the way a lot, right? Which is a book by Ryan Holiday where
yeah.
he's leveraging some of the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And when we're talking about mental and spiritual energy, particularly, I like to say that for mental energy, the obstacle is you, right? The obstacle is me,
Mm,
right?
yep.
When I'm drained and unable to focus my mental energy, like, and what do I mean by that? I mean that I'm distracted and potentially that I have a wide sort of aperture, like I can't stay locked in on one thing, right? So when we get to this sort of tactical zone, right, I can narrow my focus down and I can be fully absorbed in something, right? Then what have I done? I've taken my problems, I've taken my issues, I've taken the concerns, right? We're spilling over maybe into some emotional lack of security in this moment. But I can use my logic, I can be analytical, I can be task oriented, I can be precise and methodological, right? And it's because I've removed the obstacle of me. I've taken my focus off of what's distracting me and I've put it onto this external thing. And then when it relates to the obstacle is the way, from a spiritual standpoint, we recognize that, the way out is through. And that if I'm going to actually be able to remove the obstacle of me, then I have to deal with, from a spiritual standpoint, the problems that I'm facing, which means
Mm,
I have to go back to my source of inspiration. I have to go back to an abundance mindset that says, like, hey, I'm not dying, even though my brain might feel like I am, but that everything that's in my way, everything that feels like a problem is actually an opportunity for growth.
mm,
And so, I'd love to hear your commentary as we close up and
yeah.
think through, like, man, I know that that book has been meaningful to you. I know that that phrase is something that you've latched onto and leveraged in a lot of
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
And, and I think that there's this deep connection between our mental energy and our spiritual energy when we think about the obstacle being me and the obstacle being the way.
Yeah. Yeah. The obstacle is always me. Like, if you want more energy, the problem resides with you and the answer resides with you. The cool part about the problem residing with you is you can change that, right? Which is the whole premise of the obstacle of the way. If I am the problem to my own energy problem, then I can solve that problem. I
Yeah.
can change it. I can move that needle. So, yes, if I'm a person that's going, "Hey, I'm listening to this podcast because my capacity to do work or my energy feels hindered. It doesn't feel like what I want it to," then you have the ability to change that. You have the ability to go, "Huh, the answer probably does reside with me." If you want to get, y- yes, it could be sleep. Yes, it could be a number of things. Yes, if you are clinically depressed, we do want you to, hey, go talk with somebody, go meet with a mental health professional. All those things are true. And the fastest, best way to get your energy back is to, like Brad said, get aware of where am I lacking, and you're probably lacking in all of them, and then decide what you're intentionally going to do. And I say this all the time. This is my favorite recovery phrase. It's actually simple. It's just not easy.
That's right.
Look, all of you, it's like character. Character takes an entire lifetime to build, and one decision to blow it all up. I
Mhm.
can be really faithful to my spouse for a long time, cheat once, and I've blown up and done a lot of damage. Life is the same way. The easier options to restore energy only restore it for a quick moment and then are fleeting. The long-term solution to it is going to be is going to be more challenging. It is more challenging to be grateful, to journal, to do all those kind of things, and it is going to be what sustains you. It is going to be what gets you to where you want to go. So, if you want to continue to have an energy problem, I encourage you keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, that's good.
Uh, but if you'd like to change, then you can realize that if you always do what you've always done, then you always get what you've always got.
Mhm.
So something has to change. And if you're going, "Huh, okay, cool. Maybe I don't want that." I encourage you, go back to about minute 10 here when Brad starts talking about all these things and listen to it again and decide you can build in the capacity to change your ability to connect with your energy. Like you can do it. You can
That's
do
right.
it. You can have more energy than you've ever had. And you don't actually have to change that much, but you can just be intentional and aware. And I think you'd be surprised.